lot of people have this situation where they have a teaching they're really drawn to, then they have the practicalities of daily living, and bringing those together is almost the ultimate challenge in one way.
Yes, and I think it was exacerbated for those of us that went to India for inspiration, because the Indian teaching, the classical non-dual teaching, was packaged in a cultural form, in the Indian form, that was very, very different from our own culture. And to begin with, it's very difficult. In my case, I couldn't distinguish between what the true teaching was and what was the Indian packaging. And of course, the Indian culture is very, very different from our own culture.
Completely different, yeah.
And I think this was, it wasn't just my experience. I know that many people who at that time who went to India primarily for this teaching, and there was good reason for that. It was available there in a form in which it was not available, or at least very rarely available in the West. So it seemed at that time there was nowhere else to go for it. And I think this led to many misunderstandings about how this understanding might look in everyday life in relation to work and relationships and bringing up a family and living in the world. And so I had many misconceptions about it.
What kind of work were you doing at the time?
I was a ceramic artist, a potter.
Right. So you learned this at art college?
I had been to art college, and I later did an apprenticeship. And soon after that, in my early 20s, I set up my first studio. So I was earning my living as an artist and craftsman, which I enjoyed very much.
It's also, I would think, a wonderful way to express an inner process too.
It is. I had, at that time, an unformulated belief and feeling that beauty somehow was closely related to spirituality, for want of a better. And although I couldn't equate these two, I had a deep feeling that beauty was in the same way that love and intelligence expresses reality, that beauty also was at the deepest level an expression of reality. So my work, which was involved with beauty, was an exploration at a very physical, tangible, practical level of the nature of reality, and how that might be expressed in form, not just in words or in feelings, but in how it might take shape in form. So yes, it was that they were closely connected.
And did you feel that people responded to that? The people that bought your work, did they realise that there was something deeper going on in what you created? Did you feel?
I don't know. I think it's very difficult to say when we respond to a work of art. There are so many levels that we respond to it on. There's the immediate physical level, the form, the shape, the colour, the rhythm, whatever it is, but there's a deeper communication that's going on. Whether or not we're aware of that deeper communication, whether or not we can articulate it, in many cases we can't, but nor is it necessary to. What is necessary is that we're touched. If we go to if we hear a piece of music, it's the communication is sometimes so powerful, so intense, so deep. We don't have to be able to articulate what's going on. In fact, we have no idea what's going on. But what is important is that whatever is being communicated is received, and it's received in the heart, so to speak, not the mind.
What triggered the question for me was I don't remember the full details, but I remember reading about a situation where there was a certain painting. I don't remember the painting or the artist, but it was a famous painting in a big gallery, and there's people that have stood watching that painting that have ended up in a mental hospital because there's something about the craziness of the artist that really came through so powerfully in the painting that affected their state of mind. And I know there's other examples of people that will stand in front of a painting or a work of art and they'll be moved to tears without knowing why. And one presumes that is because of the emotion, the love, the beauty that's expressed again in that piece of art. So I would imagine that your work actually had a lot of effect on people, and obviously I mean a positive effect. That may not be something that you would be able to quantify or know about, but that would be my guess.
I think we could say that every object, in some respect, bears the signature of its origin. It expresses where it's come from. It expresses what has gone into the make of it, physically, psychologically, intellectually, emotionally, in every way. So objects that come from, for instance, from a feeling of sadness, of alienation, despair, tend to evoke that response in the viewer. An object that comes from love will somehow that will be evoked. So yes, I think at a very deep level, what goes in to the make of whatever it is that we make, if we're making something physical, what goes into it is somehow communicated by it. And what goes into it is a mixture. It's physical, psychological, intellectual, all sorts of things go into the make of an object, but at the core, it's what we truly are. And in some ways, that is the true content of the object. That's what shines through the form of the object. And I think in the kind of instance that you give where someone is moved, very deeply moved by an object, what is happening is that the place, the source from which the object came, is somehow being communicated, not to the mind of the person. We often don't know in the mind, but it moves us. And as you say, we often weep because it touches something. It dissolves something in us. It dissolves the mental, our conceptual knowledge. I went to a film last night called Man on Wire about Philippe Petit.
Yeah, I've seen that, yeah.
And I wept in it. It was so beautiful.
Yeah.
The love, the imagination, the feeling that anything is possible. It was so beautiful. And I felt that communication watching the film, the majesty of his love of life, the great mystery he felt at life, and how he could express this mystery in the most extraordinary way, lying on a wire up 1,000 meters up or something. It was so beautiful. And I was left long after the images, long after the film was gone, as I was walking home, the images receded, but what I was left with was this feeling of openness, of beauty, of love. It was a communication. What had been communicated by the film was his sense of this love, of this mystery. It was a true work of art, I think.
And also tremendous courage.
Courage that comes, it was such a beautiful expression of we could call it egoless action. There's no sense of what he did was so beyond the possibility of a limited fragment doing something in order. It came from an unlimited place